Hello, I'm Toby Fox from the 1.5 million new homes campaign sponsored by Redloft, and I'm here today in Slough to understand how Slough Borough Council can contribute more to the government's ambition to get 1.5 million new homes built. And I'm here with Neetal Rajput, who is the Development Management Lead at Slough Borough Council, to understand from Neetal what it takes to start a career in public sector housing delivery. We're standing here on a pipeline site, right? This is a site that could be bringing forward loads of new homes. Tell us a little bit about how you describe this site, its location, its size, and what the potential is for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as you can see, the site's located in the heart of the town centre.
Yeah.
So I think one of our key priorities for this site is to deliver a mix of private and affordable homes for not just our local community, but for the wider need in terms of providing housing.
Yeah.
So in terms of housing, it's one of our most basic needs that anybody needs. So housing gives you stability, it gives you the foundation, and it gives you security. So this site is a prime location to deliver that high quality housing that Slough needs, but also what the rest of the country needs at the same time.
And we're like 2 minutes from the station.
2-minute walk from Slough railway station, which has connections to London. You've got the Elizabeth line. You are a 15-minute drive or bus journey to Heathrow Airport, so you're connected globally to the rest of the world, which this site is on the doorstep of. And to the west of our borough, we've got the Slough Trading Estate, one of our largest employers of the borough, which provides jobs for local people. So you've pretty much got everything going on all in one place. So this site is just waiting. We're just waiting for the development to come forward on this site.
Okay, so it's over a hectare.
Yes.
And what's its ownership status at the moment?
Ownership status is Homes England and in partnership with Muse. So we've got two great partners there who are ready. Obviously Homes England, government agency. That's what we're really excited to be working on them with. So in terms of the planning team, we want to be proactive with the site, collaborate with them, have some really innovative design here that really speaks to the rest of the town centre, that's outward looking, that brings that connection. But most importantly, given the size and the scale of the site, there's a real opportunity for greening in terms of that public realm, and it providing a positive contribution to the town centre, and also dealing with things like sustainable drainage, dealing with like the climate change emergencies. You know, how do we get this site to sort of tackle all these wider issues that we have at the same time?
How many homes do you think you could have here?
Oh, that's a...
Like potentially,
I would
wildest
say,
dreams.
Wildest dreams, over 1,500 is a potential for this site. So a significant contribution.
What do you imagine your role to be in delivering those 1,500 homes here? What are you actually going to be doing?
Being an enabler for that. So I think one of the key roles that planning has to play is to have those really constructive conversations. So for example, on a site like this, there might be some unexpected challenges that we weren't sort of wouldn't have expected to come forward, and it's like, how do we problem solve those to negate any impacts or any problems, and how do we actually work with the developer, with Muse, with Homes England to actually deliver the home. What we want on a site for like this is the deliverability and to make sure it's viable and that it comes forward. Also, you have to remember, a site like this, you're looking at long-term delivery, so it could be over a 10-year period, and in those interim spaces, could we look at meanwhile uses that has that tangible community benefits? What really, in terms of the planning role, is actually to get development going on this site, and that's going to be the key driver here.
So Neetal, you've talked very eloquently about what you imagine happening here and the role that you're going to play in making that happen. What sort of skills do you think it requires for you to play that role?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the key skills will be negotiation, because ultimately we want to get the best form of development on the site. So we want to work really closely in partnership with the developer to bring this forward. And when I'm talking about negotiation, it's about really trying to get the best out of the site, its best potential. So the highest quality of housing, a good mix of affordable and private housing to make it viable, but also looking at the ground floor uses and thinking about the potential there in terms of that local economy and what it could support within the town centre.
So you talked about negotiation there. I'm really interested. So what is negotiation skill? How do you learn how to negotiate?
Learning to negotiate is something that just comes with time and experience. So effectively it's dealing with some really complex and tricky cases. In my personal experience, I've dealt with the redevelopment of the power station, which is the focal point in Slough. I've also dealt with really contentious applications of a new emergency department in the Greenbelt, highly contentious. And I think over time you develop negotiation because what you understand is the aims and the objectives are effectively the same. You both want to deliver, whether it's high quality housing, a community use, local jobs. If you're both aligned to being able to deliver that, and from both sides that aspiration is there, negotiation just becomes part of the conversation. And I think that's the key. In terms of negotiation, it's having that open, honest conversation and saying, right, this is what we want the site to deliver, how can we work with you? And that's what negotiation is all about, is working together effectively.
But there's a lot of empathy, isn't there? There's a lot of understanding the other person's point of view, the other party's point of view, and understanding your own point of view and trying to find out where that kind of middle ground is. Is that right?
Absolutely. You want to get the balance right, and you want to almost, if there are some differences or where we're not aligned, is to bridge those and trying to get that positive best outcome, because effectively they need to deliver, we need to understand that there's viability issues with every site that comes forward, and from our point of view is how do you actually find some really good solutions to be able to problem solve, to say, right, in terms of this site coming forward, one of the issues that I can imagine may be parking. It's really contentious in Slough. So parking obviously is a huge issue for us, but we're in the heart of the town centre. We discussed about the connectivity of Slough and where the site sits. So it's actually, what solutions could we have? Could we look at some more sustainable ways of transport, car clubs on the site instead? But understanding that you're still going to need your Amazon, your Google deliveries at the same time. And how do we cater for all of those when you've got this sort of network around you of roads?
And we talked a bit about, off camera, we were talking a bit about the difficulty of providing like GP surgeries and other kind of social infrastructure, because the system isn't in place that would occupy those surgeries with GPs. So how do you kind of go about balancing those needs of the new community that you're trying to develop here with the kind of flaws in the system? Absolutely.
So I think the key is, the key driver in terms of sustainable development is having the supporting infrastructure there. So when we're talking about supporting infrastructure, it's like what you've said, the GP surgeries, having the nurseries there, having the actual community uses that not only the new residents would need, but the existing community around the development needs to be supported with as well, so that there isn't an overburden on those. Now that's a huge challenge, not just for Slough, but for nationally. It's a challenge in terms of also being able to provide electricity to this site and the grid being able to support it. So what we need to do is have those really early conversations with the developers, but also get on board the teams that are really relevant in those conversations. So speak to our early years, speak to the NHS provider and saying, we've got this site coming up. Is there any scope of you having some sort of floor space here that would be viable for you? And if they say yes, that's great. Getting them involved in the conversation really early is the key, I think, because I think that's where you can work to something that could then be viable as an end product.
And how long have you been doing this? And what was your journey into this role?
I've been doing development management for over 15 years. I started my career at the London Borough of Barnet, and at the same time I was doing my Masters in Planning and Sustainability. I then worked in the private sector, and after doing a year there I decided to come to Slough.
As a planner?
As a planner. I worked at Deloitte Real Estate, and then after doing working there after a year, I felt that my heart was actually centred back in public sector, and that's where I just felt I could make the real difference. So I moved to Slough. I was living in Slough at the time, and I decided that I wanted to work within the borough of where I was living to add that value and to get sort of that. I felt really passionate about it at the time. So I've been at Slough for over 10 years now. I started here as a planning officer, and I've been quite fortunate because there haven't been any ceilings or restrictions in terms of my growth, and I've been given all the tools that I need from management, from my director, from my manager, to be able to grow and to become the planner that I am today. And in doing that, I support a team of planners to also empower them so that when we're dealing with sites like this is to really actually being able to get the best positive outcomes. Just in terms of my personal career, my journey, I grew up in a council estate in West London, so I could see the transition of development with around me in Ealing taking place, but also understanding in terms of how important social housing plays, and how important that we've got to unlock those barriers so that everyone has access to a home. It's absolutely critical and fundamental, but also being a product of that environment, I think that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that there's that inexclusive growth for everybody and that everyone can have access to a decent home. It's something in Slough that we really want to try and tackle because we know that it's just such a huge issue. So how do we do that? And I think that's where my passion comes from. So I think just in terms of my own career journey, it's being able to throw myself into the deep end, take hold of those really contentious, tricky cases that perhaps no one else has wanted, and just being able to deal with them head on. And that's where all those skills have developed in terms of negotiation, problem solving, being able to have that open, honest, frank conversation with the developer from the beginning to really understanding their viewpoint and where they're coming from, and then being able to see what can we deliver as the end product.
So Neetal, how do you feel about the role that you have in shaping the future of places like this and people's futures?
I feel really responsible. I feel really passionate about it. I feel that the decisions that need to be made, I need to be held accountable for. So I think in doing that, I feel that sometimes there can be a lot of pressure. So it's making sure that actually the decisions that I'm making are informed by evidence, but also informed by that local need and hearing what the community really wants.
And what's your path into this? I mean, you're shaping the future of a place, you're shaping the future of the people who are going to live here. What did you know about the potential to do that with the rest of your life when you were at school, when you were thinking about what you wanted to do with your life?
I'll be really honest, nothing. So I love geography and I always had this passion with the built environment, but I did not know that town planning existed as a pathway. So for me, I did a geography at King's College London as my undergraduate. I worked at Foxtons in the property real estate team there, but I just knew that I wanted that deeper connection with the built environment to really be able to influence and create that positive change in the environment, but I didn't know how to do that. So I went on holiday, and when I went abroad in Thailand, I realised that actually what I wanted to do was make that change to the built environment. So I came back and I started to just Google town planning or urban jobs or urban, and lots of jobs came up, and I was so fascinated, like, what is this? What is this industry? How do I get into this? And I think as I started to do a bit more research after doing my geography degree, I realised that there is a pathway. I just needed to get a job that would give me the gateway, that would sort of give me entry into the profession. And I applied and was very fortunate to have got a job at London Borough Barnet, and they knew I was coming in with zero experience, but I think they saw my willingness and my passion, and gave me that opportunity, which really did change my life for the betterment.
So they provided for your training?
They provided for my training. They paid for my master's, so I was on a day release, so I was working there full time and then 1 day a week going to university to do my master's in planning and sustainability, and that was a 4-year contract with them, and I just feel so fortunate because that opened so many doors for me. I think what really helped me in that role is my first few years I just became a sponge of learning and absorbing, and I think what really helped is I was sat amongst 2 managers, and I was wedged in the middle because at the time there was that only seat that was available in the office. But I learnt so much because when you're sort of listening into their conversations, and this is where I think, you know, sort of hybrid working and going back to the office. I was going to ask you
about that. Is that still open, that opportunity, given that people are working from home? And
I think it's more challenging because I think where people are working from home, there can be that sense of isolation. So what we want to try and do is actually encourage them back into the office, office, but also understand that they need that flexibility at the same time, because I think you need to have those where they're still able to get the experience and being able to come into the office to listen into those conversations, to keep picking up on issues that are taking place, because sometimes that just doesn't happen naturally via Teams. It can just happen more naturally.
So you need to be a sort of collaborative sort of person who wants to learn from other people and grow and evolve their skills. What other advice would you have for someone who is thinking about their future and hasn't even considered planning and delivering new homes as a future, or for people who already know that's what they want to do and don't know what to do next?
Network. I can't emphasize that enough. Not just networking, but actually building real connections and building relationships, because I think those are the ones that may give you that opportunity that you need. They may be the gatekeeper of being able to give you a job in the future, but also may be able to signpost you in the right direction, saying, you know what, there's this job going here, or there's this opportunity here, or you can get some work experience. Is really being able to get into that sort of networking arena. I think, again, it's how do you find where those opportunities exist.
You described an arena, a networking arena. Is that like you can get a ticket
I'm part of
go to the arena?
The BAME Planners Network. I think that's been really...
BAME Planners Network,
It's for ethnic minorities, and I think that given a real voice and opportunities for me to do lots of experience. So through that, I've managed to mentor some people that are in care, and really sort of come from a disadvantaged background, being able to show them that town planning exists as a career and that there is a pathway for them, and helping them to actually get into planning is and helping them with the application process. I've done a bit of work with local government association and looked at their onboarding process for their assessments for pathways into planning, and just really making it, sort of giving advice to sort of streamline processes when it comes to recruitment, and being an enabler to get people from any background into the profession, I think is the key.
So if I was in the unlikely event that I was at school or at college, how would I access the networking opportunities? How would I sort of advance my networking?
I think signposting is a good thing in terms of being able to look at the Royal Town Planning Institute and seeing what's on offer there. I think also going to fairs where there might be opportunities, if for example you're at college, to look at apprenticeship schemes to get into planning. In terms of being at school, I think we need to do more as planners there, if I'm completely honest with you. I don't think there is that exposure at the moment.
I had no idea when I was at school. You had no idea when you were at school.
I had no idea. I think what we need to be doing is an outreach programme, is actually going to schools, targeting the right year groups and making them feel really passionate about the built environment. So I think what we're quite fortunate is where we've looked at the development Horlicks and Berkeley Homes, they do lots with our local schools, so they will invite school year six to come in and to actually have a look at the development. And I think
that's the Horlicks Quarter development that we were talking with Pat about.
That's it. And walking kids through the site, through the development, to really get them passionate about their built environment, but also, you know, explaining to them what is town planning, what can it achieve. It's basically everything around you. It's the ecosystem within which you're living. It's the roads that you walk on. It's the house that you live in. It's the air that you're breathing in terms of air quality. It's everything. So if we can inspire, engage that next generation, we know that planning has a huge resource issue in the country. It's actually how do we get them engaged, and that we as leaders need to take a proactive approach in doing outreach to our local communities and being on that, having those conversations.
And bringing kids here to wander around and say, what kind of future could you imagine here with 1,500 new homes potentially? Maybe not 1,500, like we'll leave that to the developers, right? But a huge number of new homes, a huge number of people's futures being forged in this place, which is currently used for absolutely sweet FA, right?
Absolutely. I think what would be good to give them like a blank canvas and to say, and drawing out what they envisage on this site, and really looking, because kids are so creative. I mean, they have the most innovative solutions, and if anything, you want to tap into their knowledge, because they will give you ideas that probably you wouldn't have even come across, because the way that they think, it can also just add so much value and richness. So it's you know, trying to find out from them what's more important. Is it having the green, an open pocket park to have that green landscaping? That also then deals with your other issues, the technical issues like floods and sustainable drainage, but also, you know, your mental well-being and health, because you're able to have access to that green open space. So it's so important. So I think if we can get your children on this site, it would be a fantastic opportunity to see what their feedback and also they would feel, I think, if they felt part of that decision-making process, they would feel more connected to the site and may want to come in the future to live perhaps one day and buy one of the properties, who knows?
And that's building a resilient community.
Absolutely.